council are here yet? Is that right?
They're on Zoom.
Oh, on Zoom. So we'll go to the Property Council, who are going to Zoom into the meeting. And I should acknowledge that Mike Davidson, James Goff and Celeste Donovan are all on the Zoom as well.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm James Riddoch. I'm the Regional Chair of Property Council South Island Branch. I'm hoping I'm also joined by Property Council's Head of Advocacy, Catherine Wilson.
Yeah, kia ora.
Oh, you are. Fantastic. And apologies I'm not able to attend in person today, and also apologies from Sandamali, another member of our advocacy team is unwell. So thank you for having us today and giving us the opportunity to make a deputation on the draft plan. Property is the largest industry in Canterbury. There are around 160 billion in property assets across the region, with property providing a direct contribution to GDP of 4.7 billion, which amounts to some 14%, and also provides employment for over 31,000 Canterbury residents. Firstly, I'd also like to recognise Property Council's relationship with Council, including Council officers speaking at our branch meeting and having regular engagement with Council officers, including as Council forms policy. In broad terms, we support the overall direction of the annual plan. However, our members do have some concerns, particularly relating to the introduction of the vacant sites differential, and we'll address these concerns in this submission today. Firstly, I'll begin with discussing the progress of Te Kaha. And while we appreciate the Council's review of capital expenditure in light of political and economic circumstances, we support the development of Christchurch's much needed infrastructure, including the arena. We were disappointed to see that 75 million of spending on the project has been pushed to future years. Whilst we recognise the complexity of this project and the current market, we do encourage any and all efforts to try and bring the project spend forward wherever possible, and indeed the project itself. Our next topic is a Property Council perennial on the annual plans, and this is alternative funding methods. We acknowledge that rates remain the main source of funding for council activities. However, Property Council has long advocated for all local authorities throughout the country to investigate alternative funding models. This will more accurately reflect the rating base and allow the council to deliver much needed infrastructure. Many other councils have started a process of investigating alternative funding methods, such as special purpose vehicles, and using the government's recent Infrastructure Funding and Financing Act to leverage funding. We recommend that council investigate how they too can use recent legislative changes to ease funding pressures. As already flagged, perhaps a key issue in this year's plan for our members is the vacant site program. And perhaps this should also be viewed as an endorsement of the overall plan itself. Our members understand the need to beautify the CBD and to ensure that vacant sites do not have a negative impact on the amenity of the city and on demand generally within the city. However, we do not believe that the best way to achieve this is by imposing additional financial pressures on property owners. We acknowledge Council has few tools to apply to this issue, but we consider that the differential is too blunt a tool. We're concerned that there's a lack of transparency and clarity with the program. It's unclear how a site is determined vacant or what constitutes a site that is in use. While there has been a vacant site improvement guide published to assist property owners, the decision on whether a property owner qualifies for remission is ultimately based on Council's discretion. A mixture of uncertainty and criteria for property owners and the subjective interpretation by Council may lead to unfair outcomes. For our members, there are a multitude of reasons why sites may be vacant or appear vacant. The development process varies from site to site and developer to developer, and that means that the Council's one-size-fits-all approach is not appropriate. Our recommendation is that Council does not implement the differential. If it is to be implemented, then we would urge Council to reconsider the timing of the program. Property owners should not be penalised for deferring development when it is not economically viable to do so. A global pandemic, increasing CPI and interest rates, as well as a lack of activity in the CBD, are not conducive to stimulating quality development. For Christchurch to unlock its potential future, development needs to be quality development, and this must be demand-led. By focusing on the supply side and pushing property owners to develop for the sake of development will only encourage bad development, which will not be for the benefit of the city. Delay in implementation would also allow for the impact of council's parking policy and the consenting of at-grade car parks to be assessed. We consider this may make a significant impact on the number of vacant sites and the amenity impacts. It will also enable time for recovery from COVID, as has been actively supported by Council's COVID Business Recovery Program, which we're very happy to be part of, and for the benefits of the Blueprint's original demand generators to be seen. And here I'm, of course, referring to the various anchor projects, including Te Pai, Parakiore, and Te Kaha. If the differential is to be implemented, then we submit that the council should defer the program for a further 12 months to enable landowners to plan for and budget either for the differential or the required amenity improvements. Council should also provide further certainty on both qualification and remission, and also adopt a grace period of 12 to 18 months from acquisition to allow new owners to plan development. Whether or not the proposal is implemented, we also consider that council should be leading by example by ensuring that all vacant sites it owns or controls are kept in a tidy, well-maintained state in compliance with the proposed draft policy. In addition, council should promote the thinking behind the proposal in terms of the impacts on the city and on demand in the city of unmaintained sites, and also by providing examples, options, and costings for improving the amenity as envisaged by the policy. We submit this as a more appropriate lever than the imposition of further costs on landowners in the current financial climate. Finally, financial contributions, and we do not support council's proposal to recognise financial contributions as a possible additional revenue source. Commercial property owners are already facing a multitude of costs, including development contributions, rates increases, and the proposed vacant sites differential. We'd urge council to remain mindful of the cumulative effect of multiple overlapping costs to ratepayers. A major concern is also the potential for double dipping. Council would not be able to collect financial contributions as well as development contributions from the same development to fund the same activities. Furthermore, increased fees often end up on the end consumer. The introduction of financial contribution fees will also likely see planned developments postponed or cancelled due to increased costs, reducing the overall feasibility of the project. In conclusion, while we support the overall direction of this year's annual plan, we do not support the vacant sites program or the introduction of financial contributions. We caution against unintended consequences that increase the cost of development, encourage poor quality development, and deter future investment in the city. Thank you for the opportunity to present today, and Catherine and I would be more than happy to answer any questions you may have.
Sure. Well, I'll ask you this question because it's kind of similar to a question that I asked someone earlier, which was around the financial contributions specifically proposed in our plan change proposal, which shows that this is really focused on those residential developments where they don't leave 20% of the existing tree canopy, and so therefore are asked to make a contribution specifically to a fund for planting more trees. So some of the developers we've talked to have actually been very much in favour of that approach because they know that their own property sales benefit from having street properties, street trees in their neighbourhoods. That makes a huge difference. That a tree-lined street is going to produce higher values than a non-tree lined street, and unfortunately, with some of the developments, in order to get the maximum return on the site that they've got, they take away much of what was there.
Yeah, I'm also happy to answer that, James, if you want. So, Property Council would support financial contributions getting put towards treescaping. Trees. We've actually we're drafting up our district plan at the moment on that topic. Where we have concerns around financial contributions is where it gets extended beyond that scope and could fund sort of projects that development contributions already cover. We know that councils have got into legal issues in the past on financial contributions and development contributions funding the same project. Yeah. And so I think our submission is really in line with just a cautious element of ensuring that double dipping doesn't occur, and that more transparency around I guess user pay systems would be more appropriate. So our submission talks about special purpose vehicles or looking into infrastructure funding and financing as well. And then just really lastly, quickly, we do have to think about cumulative effects on house prices. So it is in the residential sector, if you are collecting financial contributions on top of DCs, they generally end up resulting in higher, adding a cumulative cost to the purchase price. So that's something else that the council should consider when looking into financial contributions.
Yeah, I think that really our focus has been on the trees. So a mechanism written into the annual plan, implemented through our district plan change, if it comes to pass. Obviously, that will be a long time down. Well, not a long time, but it will be further down the track when we notify that. So, but I'm glad I asked the question because that was a great response. Thank you. I've got Celeste.
Kia ora, and thanks for the submission. Just a quick question. In terms of alternative funding methods for Te Kaha, had you had any thoughts on that, or is it sort of something that you wanted staff to consider?
Yeah, I'd be happy to talk to that as well. We're happy to work with staff, aren't we, James? James has a great relationship, being based down there as our regional chairperson at Property Council New Zealand. We've also got a few other staff members based down, and would be happy to do some work with staff on that. We are also working. We've got some value capture work streams currently underway at Property Council New Zealand, which are members right across the country, and we'll be looking at Auckland Light Rail and other areas, potentially Greater Wellington, Let's Get Wellington Moving, other kind of large-scale projects that could have value capture. I'm not sure whether Taha would kind of fit into that, but it's something that, could look at being considered, and would be delighted to work with council closely on alternative funding mechanisms.
Thank you very much. Sam McDonald.
Yeah, hey, thank you very much for presenting it. It's probably a slightly similar vein to Celeste, but you mentioned, James, I think it was, around the delay in the capital program for the Seamua. But I mean, I guess it's just to highlight that's really around just the contract being let. So it's a technical movement in terms of that. I mean, I agree, it would have been great to have it sorted years ago, but it's not a deliberate move, it's a practical move. Yeah.
No, I appreciate that. It's it's not a planned move. It's really just underline that principal point that look, for the city, particularly the east of the city, that project is absolutely critical. So anything that can expedite it is worth doing. But yeah, I do acknowledge that it's those delays are not generally of council's making.
No, good as gold.
It's just the timing. It's only a timing issue. So we don't borrow the money ahead of needing it. So when we pay the money, we borrow it. So that's all it is in the plan.
Yeah, but your sentiment's definitely shared.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you. Have I got any other questions for the Property Council? No, look, thank you very much, and thank you also for your offer to work with staff and to work on all of those wider issues. And I'd like to acknowledge the very good working relationship that we have with the Property Council. I think, I've enjoyed pre-COVID when Leonie could come down and visit us in person, but it's very much appreciated. So we appreciate the way that you've approached your submission today as well. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And we've got Lindsay Carswell.